Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Bites and Bits of History, sponsored by the John and Loretta Hynes Foundation. My name is Bill Lawson. I'm Executive Director of the Mahoning Valley Historical Society, and I want to wish everyone a happy, prosperous, and healthy new year as we begin 2021. Due to the ongoing coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, we are sorry to report that all of our facilities for Mahoning Valley Historical Society are closed. That includes Tyler History Center, the MVHS Archives Resource Center, Arms Family Museum of Local History, and Business and Media Archives. We hope to be reopened with safety precautions in place as soon as possible, but please look out for any announcements for upcoming openings of our facilities. Today's program is called Tokens of Affection, Historic Valentine's Greetings. Our presenter will be Jessica Trickett, who has been involved with Bites and Bits of History in the past. Jessica has been employed by the Mahoning Valley Historical Society since 1998. As Manager of Collections and Curatorial Services, she curates the Historical Society's collection, develops museum exhibits, and works with other staff, interns, and volunteers to make the collection accessible to the public. Jessica holds BA and MA degrees in history and a certificate of historic preservation from Youngstown State University. I'm very pleased to welcome Jessica Trickett.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. We're going to take a look at the origins of Valentine's Day and the exchange of Valentine cards. The examples you're going to see here today are from the Mahoning Valley Historical Society's archives collection, and we hope you enjoy them. Valentine's Day, the holiday, also called St. Valentine's Day, is held February 14th every year, and it's become a day where lovers express their affection with greetings and gifts. While it's now mostly a secular holiday, the mid-February celebration does have religious origins. Valentine's Day coincides with the ancient pagan holiday of Lupercalia, and it was held in Rome in mid-February. The festival honored the god Lupercus and included fertility and purification rites. At the end of the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I of the Roman Catholic Church suppressed this Lupercalia festival because of its pagan origins. He also instituted the February 14th feast day honoring St. Valentine, a Catholic martyr. The relationship between these two holidays has been speculated about over the centuries, but modern scholars have found no definitive proof that Pope Gelasius deliberately replaced the pagan celebration. The overlapping dates may only be a coincidence, as the St. Valentine's Day holiday didn't take on any romantic significance until centuries later. The image you're seeing is a Roman mosaic representing the month of February and showing the Lupercalia festivities. So although there are several accounts of Catholic martyrs named Valentine, most legends point to a Roman priest and physician who was beheaded on February 14th in the year 270 AD by the Emperor Claudius II Gothicus. One legend says that the emperor had forbidden engagements and marriages so that young men would forego romantic attachments and be committed to the many military battles fought by Rome. Saint Valentine defied the emperor's orders and secretly married couples. Valentine was condemned to death when he tried to convert Claudius to Christianity. This painting represents St. Valentine kneeling, and it is by David Teniers III, done in the 17th century. So although Valentine's Day became synonymous with romantic love, that didn't really happen until much later than the 5th century when the holiday was instituted. There was a publication of a poem called The Parliament of Fowls by Geoffrey Chaucer in the 14th century. And the poem depicts a group of birds that gather on St. Valentine's Day to choose their mates for the year. And this really kind of kicked off the notion that Valentine's Day was a holiday where you would express love to your loved ones. This is courtesy of the British Library. So, of course, the image of lovebirds became a Valentine's Day symbol. This Valentine postcard from the 19-teens shows doves delivering love letters to a waiting woman. Well, Valentine's Day has become known for, of course, expressions of affection through greeting cards among couples, relatives, and friends. And these Valentine greetings have origins in the 15th century. The earliest known Valentine was written by Charles, the Duke of Orleans, to his wife, Bonne of Armagnac, while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London in 1415 after being captured in battle. One of the verses of the Duke's poem to his young wife reads, "I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine, since for me you were born too soon, and I for you was born too late." Another 15th century Valentine letter survives in the British Library, this one by an Englishwoman whose name was Marguerite Bruce, and she wrote to her fiancé, John Paston, in February 1477, calling him her right well beloved Valentine. So as you can see, these origins start off slowly with just kind of, communications between lovers, and it slowly progresses and grows over the centuries. So by the 17th century, it became customary in parts of Europe for men and women to draw lots and pick who would be the object of their affection during the Valentine's celebration. They gave their chosen partners gifts like gloves, handkerchiefs, snuff boxes, and of course, chocolates. The popularity of sending Valentine's greetings seems to have picked up in the 18th century, when lovers began exchanging handmade valentines, sometimes cut into shapes or decorated with hearts, flowers, birds, and cupids, and also, of course, filled with romantic poetry. By the late 1700s, there were commercially produced booklets called Valentine Writers that offered examples one could use in crafting these handmade valentines. This is an example from 1845 held by Chetham's Library. It was in the early 19th century that commercially made valentines became available for those who didn't have the time or inclination to create their own. Early examples were hand-painted prints made by engravers, and this represents an engraver of that time period. The commercially made Valentine craze came to the United States in the mid-1800s. Engravers and printers saw a business opportunity and made valentines for sale. Early examples are hand-colored lithographs with printed verses like this one, and it also became easier to send valentines at that time, especially by post. In Britain, the British postal system began offering a letter rate of 1 penny, while in the US, postal rates were also reduced, and the US Postal Service began regular delivery routes throughout the country. In England, stationers began using paper lace to produce elaborate, highly decorated valentines with cutout designs of flowers, birds, and cupids. While their American counterparts tried to copy these creations, they had varying success, as paper made in the United States was of inferior quality to that overseas. A woman here in the United States named Esther Howland of Worcester, Massachusetts, started the New England Valentine Company in 1847. She used lace and embossed papers that she imported from England and Germany to create fancy, intricate Valentine designs, which she and her workers produced in assembly line fashion. This embossed booklet was printed by Howland's company in the mid-19th century. These paper lace cards emulate Howland's wildly popular designs. This one from the 1860s was made by Whitney Brothers of Worcester, Massachusetts. George Whitney got his start at Esther Howland's establishment before going off to fight in the Civil War. And when George came back, he joined his family's printing business and continued making cards into the 20th century. This paper lace card was made by McLaughlin Brothers, a New York firm established in 1858. So cards throughout the 19th and 20th centuries started to be made in varieties of styles, shapes, and sizes. Here is a double-sided colored lithograph edged in silk fringe, copyrighted 1883. It was made by L. Prang and Company, lithographers in Boston. And Prang also made this folded Valentine card in 1887. And this is a cardstock and painted design, obviously featuring floral designs and poetry. So Louis Prang, who founded the company, was making greeting cards, and he began making greeting cards in 1873 and has been called the father of the American Christmas card. A couple of different styles that became popular in the late 19th and early 20th century are the dimensional or pull-down cards that feature several layers and create a three-dimensional look when opened, just like this one, which features lots of scrap and die-cut cutouts and strings that bind them all together. These examples were printed in Germany, and I'll show you a second, little more elaborate version. These German imports became popular as Germany dominated the trade of chromolithography, which was the art of printing multicolored designs. So you can see that these use lots of different layers and crepe paper and cutouts that make for a beautiful dimensional piece. We have one more example from the 1930s that features a die-cut automobile that expands with crepe paper and becomes a lovely stand-up dimensional piece as well. Well, die-cutting technology spread in the mid-19th century, and it allowed publishers to make cards and scraps and lots of interesting shapes, and scrapbooking was a popular hobby, so these colorful cards could be posted and pasted into memory books by those hobbyists. These examples of die-cut cards are from the first decade of the 20th century. Many are embossed, which creates a raised effect on the card surface. This Valentine Fan was made by Raphael Tuck & Sons, a London firm that was used by the royal family right around the turn of the 20th century. This framed piece features a die-cut embossed heart. Thank you. And it has dimensional layers, and it's bordered by ribbon and floral parchment rolls, framed in a shadow box, and it was given to 16-year-old Louise Clayton by her boyfriend in 1908. So postcards are another very popular form of Valentine's greetings, and they became convenient in the beginning in 1899, when both the British and the United States Postal Services began mailing postcards for reduced rate delivery. The use of decorative postcards as seasonal greetings immediately took off. And also beginning into the 20th century now, these cards were done by Whitney Made in the 1920s, the same company that did our paper lace example from the 1860s. Another company active during that time was called Rustcraft. They were centered in Boston, and they made this die-cut card in the 1920s. The Rust brothers moved their company to Boston around 1910 and specialized in greeting cards for all seasons. The brand was eventually absorbed by a modern company, American Greetings. Another modern company that we all know as an icon in the Valentine industry is Hallmark. And Hallmark began selling Valentine cards in 1913. These Hallmark cards that you're seeing are from the 1950s and 60s. Of course, handmade cards continue to be used all along. These examples from our collection range from very simple to rather elaborate designs. And now we're going to take a look at some of the common characters and symbols used in Valentine's designs. So Valentine cards often depict Cupid, the son of Venus, the Roman goddess of love. Hearts are also, of course, very popular because they symbolize love and affection. Maybe you didn't know that Cupid has a first name. References to Dan Cupid, as you see here, appear in literature as early as 1595. None other than Shakespeare refers to Dan Cupid in his play Love's Labor Lost. And Dan may have actually been intended as an honorific, like Mr., but the name has survived throughout the centuries. So again, Cupid is depicted here with his bow and arrow at the ready to strike love into the hearts of his mortal targets. And the arrow-pierced heart also becomes a common symbol in Valentine's. Well, traditional Valentine's gifts include candy and flowers, particularly red roses that are a symbol of beauty and love. There are lots of different symbolic meanings to flowers that we're going to look at now. So flowers like roses, tulips, carnations, violets, and peonies all have different meanings, and the different colors among them even change the meaning. Violets, shown here, represent innocence, modesty, and true and everlasting love, while tulips are for perfect and deep love. Asters represent wisdom and devotion. Red roses, of course, are for love and passion, while pink are for gratitude, grace, and joy. Yellow roses are for friendship and caring, and light red carnations symbolize admiration, while dark red symbolizes love and affection. Here we see the combination of roses and violets, which brings to mind a famous Valentine poem. The familiar lines made their first appearance in a collection of English nursery rhymes printed in 1784, and they read, "The rose is red, the violet's blue, the honey's sweet, and so are you." And of course, we've seen many variations of that since then. Romance, of course, is an overriding theme in many Valentines, with cards featuring lovers or ladies that are visions to be admired. And these romantic images often are accompanied, of course, by love poems. Here are a couple of examples of those. And the theme of marriage comes up in Valentine's as well, sometimes in romantic ways and sometimes also as lighthearted comic Valentines. You see another reference to Daniel Cupid here as a matrimonial agent. And while, of course, romance is a theme, love poetry becomes the center of a lot of these Valentines. And it gives an opportunity to express emotions that maybe the sender wouldn't normally be able to convey on their own. This example uses a poem by Thomas Moore. While other verses used in these greetings are more friendly in nature than romantic and meant for neighbors and friends that, of course, have become a popular recipients for Valentines over the years. Still others warn to be wary to guard against Cupid's attacks. So in keeping with the theme of being wary of Valentines, these clever and humorous cards remind us that not every message is sentimental. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, industrialization and cheap manufacturing made the mass-produced cards more readily available, and even more people began exchanging Valentines. So these cards show the exchange of greetings via post, which became increasingly popular by the late 19th century. In 1886, the United States Postal Service requested that all Valentines be mailed early to avoid interfering with regular mail delivery. It also became common for school children to exchange Valentines in the early 20th century. We have several examples of those exchanged by students here in our collection. These ones date from the 1920s through the 1950s. These mechanical cards with moving parts are from the 1930s. And most of the 1950s era cards shown here were produced by the AmeriCard company, which is now owned by American Greetings. So, as I mentioned, cards among family and friends and neighbors became more popular to send because it was easy to do so. And these family-themed cards that you're seeing are from the 1940s and 1950s. Modern Valentines carry on many of the themes we've explored today. Now, of course, they're readily available in every grocery, drug, and discount store for purchase. It's now a part of a multi-billion-dollar industry that makes some people cynical about the commercialization of Valentine's Day. And the holiday has certainly transformed over the centuries, as have the Valentine greetings that mark this day. And I want to thank you for joining us during this presentation. I hope you have enjoyed this look at historic Valentine's greetings from our collection, and happy Valentine's Day to you all.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for that most informative presentation, which is timely for the upcoming winter holiday. More about what's happening in February here at Mahoning Valley Historical Society. Because of the pandemic, we are very sad to report that we will not be doing our signature fundraising event, Cookie Table and Cocktails, in person this year, though we have wonderful plans for a virtual celebration of Youngstown's famous cultural phenomenon, the wedding cookie table. As I mentioned, the event will be a video production with highlights on the history and legacy of the cookie table and appearances from community leaders, local celebrities, cookie bakers, and a few surprise guests. We encourage viewers to visit their favorite local bakery for cookies or try their hand at making their own homemade cookies for the table. Instructions for the signature cocktail for this year's event will also be part of the video production. We will premiere the video on Saturday, February 27th, and because of this being so important to the Historical Society, next month's Bites and Bits of History will be combined with Cookie Table and Cocktails for this program, and it'll be fun and very informative and all about this important part of our history here in the Mahoning Valley. We'll also have an online silent auction and basket raffle for those who will be interested in the many wonderful items that we'll have up for auction and raffle. And we hope you will participate in that, which will help us to raise funds, which is one of the key elements of Cookie Table and Cocktails. So we look forward to seeing you again in February for Bites and Bits, but also Cookie Table and Cocktails. Until then, best to you all.